You can be great at your job and still be exhausted. The difference between a strength and a weakness are millimeters apart. A lot of people will read their CliftonStrengths themes and they get very excited about what it is their strengths bring to the table, how they can contribute, how they can use them to win at their job and work. The problem is that this is what your strengths bring to the table. What they ignore is what your strengths actually need. See, CliftonStrengths are all about the patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior in our head that we can employ naturally. And while yes, a lot of times they are strengths, in fact, that's the name of the title, CliftonStrengths, the reality is they don't always make you feel strong. In fact, sometimes the very strengths that you'll use that'll make you feel strong one day will actually make you feel weak another. What you need to understand is that when it comes to CliftonStrengths, there's things you bring and there's things you need. So what I want to do is I want to unpack something because most people only talk about what they bring. They want to focus in on the positive. Bring. The problem is that if you don't get the needs met, one, they may not bring it well, but two, before you know it, the need of that strength will actually overwhelm the others. So let me unpack all that. What does that mean? Okay, CliftonStrengths bring things to the table. These are thoughts, feelings, and behaviors when it comes to how you communicate, how you prioritize, how you make decisions, and you bring those and you bring them naturally. So for example, let me talk about my themes. So I have communication, command, activator, woo, and positivity. Those are my CliftonStrengths themes. Just to pick a couple of those, communication likes to bring understanding. It brings messaging. It brings narrative. It brings arc. Command wants to bring clarity of mission. It brings drive. It brings encouragement and motivation. Activator likes to bring next steps, an urgency, a motivating kind of factor. The bringing of what it brings is those big pieces there. A lot of influencing themes in my top 5. But here's the deal. In order for those things to function properly, for example, they need something to make them function. So for communication, I can bring understanding, I can bring great vocabulary and words, but I need an audience that can reflect back to me and say, yes, I hear you. Yes, I understand. Command will actually bring mission and drive and motivation. But what happens when they actually don't feel clear about the mission? What are they not leaning into? They don't feel like anything matters. And so suddenly they become very unmotivated. Activator can create urgency and push to create things to go from ideas to action. But guess what? They need to see traction. They need to see motion. They need to see momentum. So here's what happens. When you bring one thing, but you don't get the need met, you start to overlap. So for me, for example, I have command, I can bring leadership, but here's the problem. When I don't feel clear on what the mission is, when I don't feel the mission is important, I will actually start diving into all kinds of things. I will reach for my activator and I'll turn it up. Instead of just activating on things that are the mission, I activate on everything. And so I look really busy and I look really moving. The problem is that I'm not getting my command need met, so I'm doubling down on my activator. Communication. We like to bring words and vocabulary. The hard part is when we don't feel understood, we, instead of finding new innovative ways to talk, we start to repeat ourselves again and again and again. Your CliftonStrengths themes, they operate in this idea of what is it you're bringing and what is it you need. Think about your themes. If you have achiever, you're going to bring hard work, but you may find that you need measurability. And so if you feel like you're working, but you can't pile it up at the end of the day, you can't check it off, you can't measure it, you're going to feel like the need isn't meeting what you're bringing. Before you know it, it starts to get more exhausting. You may double down and suddenly say, well, I have to actually work harder because if I'm not seeing it measured, surely it's just not getting done. That's not true. You could be in endless amounts of meetings, but if it wasn't on your list, your brain might not let you realize that you've accomplished something. You have to realize that your strengths have to have both pieces. You need the chance to bring them to places that'll let you use them, but also you have to have the need. And so when you think about your 5, there's 4 domains of CliftonStrengths: thinking, strategic thinking, influencing, relating, and executing. You can kind of get a sense for what the needs are. But if you look at your top 5 report, log back into my.gallup.com, look at your report. What is it in there that is a need? You could actually look at your calendar sometimes and say, which one of my strengths is getting on based on my calendar activities and what the meetings are about? Which one is going to get a chance to bring what it does best? Which one is going to meet a need? There's times like with Relator, you may find that you actually need authenticity. And if you're spending too much time talking to strangers, You have to make sure that you have meetings that are about depth with people that know you, that don't require explanation. Those authentic moments, the time to get to know someone over time, that will balance out all the times you have to meet people that you don't know well. Bring and need. You have to approach your Clifton Strengths with this idea of my strengths have a need and are they getting met? And a lot of times, it's not just about the task. It's about the setting. It's about the people you work with. And so they may very much like the fact that your responsibility, you're hardworking and committing, and you get to actually bring psychological ownership for whatever you're involved in. But if you're never allowed to finish, or if people keep asking you to commit to things without giving you the end, your brain needs clarity about that end. You will suddenly commit, but you know there's no end, so now you feel exhausted. You feel like it's almost like in the old days, and they would say, you're giving them a blank check, but you don't know how much money they're gonna take out of your account. You're committing to giving them energy and your effort, but you're not putting a limit on that. We need to understand how to better limit those things. And so I will meet people all the time. In fact, in my book, Extraordinary, The World Sold You a Map, What You Need is a Compass, I talk about meeting this teacher who, for years and years and years, was winning Teacher of the Year award, who had every role from literally third grade all the way up to high school, had worked as the union rep. She tried all these different pieces and was very successful as a teacher. And when I asked her, I said, do you love teaching? She's like, God, no, I don't love it at all. But she had dominant themes of responsibility, achiever, as two of her dominant pair with some belief. Years ago when she was young, she volunteered to work in a daycare for like a kids program at a community center. They kept encouraging her with how responsible she was, because you needed that to be with kids. And then when it came time to apply to schools and degrees, some advisors were like, what have you done before? She said, oh, I've worked with kids. And because she was good at it and always got affirmed for it, she continued to do more of it. The problem was that she also, in her top 5, had context and she had intellection. And she actually liked ideas even more than she liked delivery. And so she kept thinking, I'm just gonna keep working hard as a teacher. When I said, what would you love to do? She said, I would have loved to have been a lawyer. I wanted to work in law. She liked precedent. And in fact, the need to be able to unpack and think and not just teach, because those go together, caused her to get really out of balance. And so in fact, we talked about maybe she could leverage the teaching, but actually teach at a higher level. It might give her the chance to do the research and thinking and not just the action. See, your Clifton Strengths are a stack. They're not just one or two different things. So part of your profile might be met. She was getting the delivery for the kids and doing something that matters with belief, but her intellection context themes, their need wasn't being met. So she kept doubling down on the front end, not realizing she had to find a way to mix those together. When you look at your Clifton Strengths stack, what is it that you're bringing to the table naturally? But what's that need? Because it starts there. So 2 things I want you to catch. 1, your strengths aren't just strengths. They bring something to the table, but they need something. But 2, when a need isn't being met in some of your strengths, it transfers to the other ones, and now you double down, and that's when you can get out of balance. 2 questions. Do you know what you bring? And do you know what you need? Look at your calendar. Look at your life. Make a list of all the things that go on a typical day. What are you bringing your strengths to? What items in your day are getting those strengths needs met? Drop a comment here below. If you want to figure that out though, you can find that out in a place we call the Fit Forum. It's all about using your Clifton Strengths to find a fit, to understand your strengths, set a vision, face your fears, take courageous action. There's a link in the description below. Join us there if you want to know more.